So Arsenal is a very emotional side, very emotional. And they cannot sustain the level of dominance we are seeing for Manchester City if they do not solve that problem of that emotion. And in this video, we're going to talk very quickly about 2 times in the last summer transfer window that Arsenal showed that emotional side and how it has cost us this season. So stick around, don't forget to smash that like button to give this video some reach. Now let's jump right into it. In the last transfer window, the club made it clear that there was a budget for a big summer transfer window. And they actually backed their words. Arsenal spent for the first time in a summer transfer window over £300,000. That's serious money. Now, most of the transfers that were made in that window were very good. We saw the likes of Gyökeres. Some people questioned that signing. I don't have a problem with it. We saw the likes of Zubimendi coming. We saw the likes of Mosquera. We saw Hincapié and the rest of them. But they were all good, very, very good signings in my opinion. But there are 2 signings Arsenal made that have significantly cost us this season. Maybe by now, the league should have been wrapped up if these 2 signings were gotten right. And if Arsenal is going to be a dominant team in the next couple of years or in the next decade, they must fix that emotional side. Now, when Arsenal were about to sign the first person, Madueke, there was an uproar. Fans were upset. They had not even completed the deal, and there was a protest on social media. Some people went ahead to start signing a petition to stop that transfer. And people who had, good judgment came out and said, you know what, let's leave these things up to the management. Let's trust the board. Let's trust the sporting director. Let's trust Arteta. These are the players he has said he wants. Let's get him the players he wants. But if you look deeply into that transfer, you will see the problem with that decision. We're down almost a season gone with Madueke playing as Bukayo Saka's substitute on the right, and he has not been able to do much. If you watch the game against Manchester City, the game against Newcastle, you will see the reason why we should never have signed Madueke. Even the entire season, Arsenal have had to depend largely on set pieces to get us ahead. Several games, we've had to use set pieces to win those games or to get the maximum points we could get from those games because the attack is really non-existent. Gyökeres came first, struggling a bit to find and understand the game. He's still struggling a little bit. But on the flanks, we've been non-existent. Trossard is out of his depths. And Madueke, I'm sure Madueke has played 40% of Arsenal games this season. And he's supposed to be Saka's replacement. Saka has been injured for several times this season. And he has played, in my opinion, maybe 60% of the time, or even 50-50 right now. So whoever was supposed to be Saka's backup was supposed to be somebody at Saka's level. In fact, Saka has actually dropped a level. So we should have used the opportunity of signing Madueke to actually upgrade that position. But the sentiment of we don't want to lose Bukayo Saka, he's the face of the club. He was about to sign a contract extension going into this season. And the club was not ready to even risk having that conversation with Saka about how do we guarantee your position in the team. You are like a vice captain. How do we make sure that you don't feel threatened? But that's not how big clubs operate. Manchester City remained dominant for years because they had 2 world-class players in every position. Think about it. Arsenal are going to be playing almost 60 games come the end of the season or even more. How many teams... How many players do you think you need to have to sustain 60 games at the end of the season? The average player should be playing about 30 to 35 games a season, roughly. And if you're going to sustain the level that Arsenal have had, and by the way, in the last 2-3 seasons, the reason why Arsenal did not win the league is because when we have a very good first 11, but once there are injuries to key players like Saka, like Saliba, and the rest of them, we just fall off the title race. Nobody's saying the first team is not good enough, but your backups are just not good enough. The club recognized this last summer, and they wanted to fix it. But the emotional side came into it. Why do we want to get a player that will make Bukayo Saka feel threatened? And what did we end up doing? We signed a Madueke who we knew was not good enough. But that was the kind of player that Saka would, be happy to have as his backup. He was just not good enough. He will run. His runs were kind of, he was creative on the runs. His take-ons were not that bad, but there was no end product. We knew that. A team that is dominant will look for opportunities to bring about competition in every single position. We felt a bit like that when we signed Mosquera as a backup for Saliba. His first few games were fantastic. We even started to feel that there was a lot more balance in the team when Mosquera was playing than when Saliba was playing. There were games when there was a division among the fans. They were like, we should start Mosquera. Saliba genuinely felt threatened. But that is what big clubs do. There is always competition for places. It doesn't matter who you are. And that opportunity to upgrade, just imagine Arsenal signed Semenyo in place of a player like Madueke. Just imagine how potent Arsenal's attack would have been. He has scored over 20 goals already this season or so. And imagine if that was the situation right now, with Saka not performing this year, Arsenal would have still been operating at a very high level. In fact, he would have put Saka in a position where he has to fight for his place. And that is what big clubs do. That is what dominant teams do. Think about Manchester City. For several years, they had 2 solid strikers at every given time. In fact, imagine having to sell Julian Alvarez because you were signing, what's his name? The current striker in Manchester City. So just that's the level of competition that you need in a club like Arsenal. You can't be sentimental. You can't. I was going to remember Haaland, yes. So if Haaland was coming and Julian Alvarez had to leave, imagine you sell an £85 million striker because you're getting someone simply better. That is the level of a dominant side. Arsenal cannot continue to be sentimental or emotional about who comes or who chooses to stay. That decision to keep, to sign Madueke instead of a top winger that will give Saka genuine competition is the same reason why Saka is still not improving his levels and Arsenal are struggling. The second time they made that mistake was when it was time to replace Thomas Partey. The fans again reacted. They were not excited about the signing of Nørgaard, but the club were like, no, this is not the replacement for Thomas Partey. It's going to be Zubimendi to replace Partey, and this is the replacement for Jorginho, who was leaving. But we're not buying it. As of today, the biggest crisis Arsenal have in midfield is that Zubimendi has been overplayed. He's a very top player. So think of the first half of the season. Nobody complained about his performance, but he's playing too many games. He's tired. He's fatigued. And that's why you see that some games he just falls off. He's just not in the game. And that's because there's nobody to give him rest. Arteta does not even trust Nørgaard. I don't think he has played up to 3 Premier League games, and of which none of them were starting positions. He came from the bench. Nørgaard has not played up to 3 Premier League games this season. So he's not there to back up. He's not doing the job he was bought to do. He's just not doing the job he was bought to do. And that's exactly the reason why Zubimendi is almost feeling like he's burnt out. But Arteta still doesn't trust his backup. So imagine that Arsenal just simply, yes, I know Thomas Partey has a legal case, but imagine Arsenal simply kept Thomas Partey, gave him the contract extension he wanted, instead of buying Nørgaard, and then he's the backup to Zubimendi. A game like the game against Manchester City, where, Zubimendi was being bullied in midfield, he lost the ball several times. That was the kind of game that somebody like Thomas Partey would have dominated. I've seen several games. I remember the game against Aston Villa, we're bullied in the midfield. And those are the games where you needed to bring a top player like Thomas Partey. So these two signings has made Zubimendi to fall off. He lost the ball several times on those games. I remember the game against Manchester United, he was bullied again. And that's because he's tired, he's fatigued. We signed backups, but we can't use them. That sort of emotion needs to end by the end of this season. Hopefully, these players we brought in help us cross the line and win the league, and hopefully also the Champions League. But for me, Arteta, part of the reason why they call him a baby coach is because he's not decisive sometimes. The emotional side is getting the better of him, and also the backroom staff, because they all agree on these decisions. So in this video, basically, I'm just here to put out the fact that the emotional side, if Arsenal are going to be a dominant team, I see the kind of money they spend, I see how they're trying to build the team to be dominant in the league for years. They must cut out the emotional side. There's no player that has to be that's untouchable. There should be no player that is untouchable at Arsenal. If Saka is dropping the levels, if we are going to replace, and again, being decisive also means at the end of this season, if there's a need to let go of some players, I'm not going to be very specific about who needs to go, who needs to stay. But if they're going to let go of players, even if you sign a player last season, it's not out of place to rethink that decision after 12 months and replace him with a top quality player. So let me know your thoughts on all of this. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next video. I'm out.